Husband cheated on wife. 3 years later, discovered wife had given birth to twins. Husband fainted. The reflection in the executive bathroom mirror didn't lie. Noah Richardson adjusted his navy blue tie one last time, his fingers trembling slightly as he tried to ignore the deep dark circles under his brown eyes. At 32, his life appeared to be one of corporate success in Boston. CFO of a promising company, an imported car, and an apartment overlooking the harbor. But the emptiness in his chest grew every day, like a shadow that refused to go away. "Mr. Richardson, the meeting starts in 5 minutes," his assistant's voice echoed through the intercom. Noah took a deep breath, trying to pull himself together. 3 years had passed since he had made the decision that would change his life forever. 3 years since he had abandoned Naomi, his wife, without so much as a proper explanation. At the time, he had convinced himself that it was the right choice. His career was taking off, and he didn't feel ready for the responsibilities of a marriage, let alone the news of the pregnancy that Naomi had shared that fateful night. Crossing the mirrored corridors of the office, Noah mechanically greeted his colleagues. His professional success had come at a price that he was only now beginning to truly understand. The nights were the worst. Alone in his minimalist apartment, he often found himself looking at old photos on his cell phone, remembering Naomi's radiant smile and the life they had built together. The meeting went like so many others. Numbers, projections, strategies. Noah presented the quarter's results with his usual competence, but his mind wandered. At the end, he decided to walk to the cafe next to the office, desperately in need of some fresh air. Autumn in Boston painted the streets in shades of gold and red, and the cold air cut across his face as he walked. It was then that fate decided to intervene in a cruel and unexpected way. Through the cafe window, his eyes met a scene that made his heart stop. Naomi, more beautiful than in his memories, sitting at a table near the window. But she wasn't alone. 2 small, identical boys were playing animatedly beside her. Their features were a perfect blend of his and Naomi's, skin halfway between his and hers, eyes as big and expressive as their mother's, but the shape of their faces unmistakably similar to her own. The world seemed to spin in slow motion. Noah felt his legs go weak, and before he could fully process what he was seeing, his eyes met Naomi's. The recognition was instantaneous, and he saw her smile die on her lips, replaced by an expression of shock and then, quickly, of maternal protection. Unable to stop himself, Noah entered the cafe, his legs moving as if they had a life of their own. "Naomi," his voice came out as a hoarse whisper. "Noah," she replied, her tone controlled but charged with restrained emotion. The boys looked curiously at the stranger, who had stopped by their table. They're... Noah couldn't complete the sentence, his vision beginning to darken at the edges. "Your children," Naomi added, her voice firm but shaky. "Mason and Miles are 3. The impact of those words was like a punch in the gut. 3 years. The same 3 years since he had left, leaving Naomi alone, unaware that she was carrying not 1, but 2 lives inside her. The weight of her choices, of her cowardice, of everything she had lost fell on her shoulders like an avalanche. "Mommy, who is he?" asked one of the boys, his childish voice innocent and curious. Before Naomi could answer, Noah's world began to spin. The voices around him became distant, and the last thing he saw before losing consciousness was Naomi's worried gaze, the same loving gaze he had abandoned 3 years ago. When he came to, he was lying on the sofa at the back of the cafe with the manager's worried face above him and Naomi standing a few meters away, holding the hands of the 2 boys. His sons. Reality hit him again with full force. "The paramedics are on their way," the manager informed him, but Noah could barely hear him. His eyes were fixed on the boys, who were watching him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "Naomi, please." He tried to sit up, but dizziness forced him to remain lying down. "Not now, Noah," she replied, her voice softer than he deserved. "You need to recover first, and I need to process this too." He watched helplessly as she led the boys out of the cafe, their small figures disappearing through the door. The emptiness in his chest, which had once seemed immense, was now an endless abyss. The life he had chosen to abandon had not only continued without him, but had multiplied into 2 little lives that carried his blood. Lying on that sofa, while waiting for the ambulance, Noah Richardson finally understood the true magnitude of his choices, and for the first time in 3 years, he allowed the tears to fall freely, not from self-pity, but from deep regret, and a desperate desire to make amends for past mistakes. The distant sound of the ambulance siren marked not only the end of his fainting spell, but the beginning of a journey that he knew would be the most important of his life, the road to redemption, to meeting his children, and perhaps, if he was very lucky, to regaining the trust of the only woman he had ever truly loved. The hospital room was silent except for the constant beeping of the heart monitor. Noah was sitting on the bed, still wearing his hospital gown, while Dr. Matthews reviewed his tests. The diagnosis was simple, a sudden drop in pressure caused by intense emotional stress, but the real storm was raging inside his mind. "Mr. Richardson, physically you're fine, but I recommend a few days' rest," said the doctor, adjusting his glasses. "Emotional shocks can have serious consequences if not properly processed." Noah just nodded, his thoughts fixed on the two little figures he had met hours before, Mason and Miles, his sons. The words still sounded strange in his mind, like a distant echo of a reality he had lost the right to participate in. After the doctor left, his phone vibrated. It was Daniel, his best friend since college, and the only person who really knew the whole story with Naomi. "Dude, I just heard that you fainted. What happened?" Noah took a deep breath before answering. "Dan, I saw Naomi today." The silence on the other end of the line was momentary. "Oh, shit. It's not just that," Noah continued, his voice shaking. "She has children, twins, my kids. Dan, I have 2 3-year-old sons I didn't know existed." "Jesus Christ," Daniel muttered. "Do you need me to come over?" "Please." 30 minutes later, Daniel entered the hospital room. His friend, normally so composed in his well-cut suit, seemed to have aged a decade in the last few hours. "How are you coping?" Daniel asked, taking a seat in the chair next to the bed. "I'm not," Noah admitted. "They're perfect, Dan. They have her eyes, but they look like me too. And Naomi, she raised our children alone while I lived my mediocre life thinking only of myself." Daniel watched his friend for a moment. "You know that changes everything, don't you?" "I abandoned her while she was pregnant," Noah whispered, the words coming out like a painful confession. "I didn't even wait to find out. I just ran away. What kind of man does that?" "A scared man," Daniel answered honestly. "But now you have a choice to make. What are you going to do about it?" Before Noah could answer, a soft knock on the door interrupted the conversation. Regina, Naomi's mother, was standing in the doorway, her face a mask of contained emotions. Noah felt his heart racing. The heart monitor betrayed his anxiety with faster beeps. "Regina, No," she interrupted him, raising a hand. "You have no right to say anything now. I came because Naomi asked me to check that you were all right, because that's the kind of person she is. But I've also come to make a few things clear." Daniel discreetly stood up. "I'll get some coffee," he muttered, leaving the room. Regina approached the bed, her eyes fixed on Noah. "For 3 years, I've watched my daughter struggle alone. I saw her work 2 jobs while she was pregnant. I saw her cry silently at night thinking no one would notice. I saw her give birth alone, holding my hand and wishing it was her own. And I saw her become the most devoted mother those boys could have." Each word was like a stab in Noah's chest. Silent tears began to stream down his face. "Mason had a high fever when he was 6 months old. Naomi spent 3 days in hospital with him, not sleeping, while I looked after Miles." "Where were you?" "Miles took his first steps during Sunday lunch. Mason said his first word, 'Mama,' during his bath. Every precious moment you missed, every challenge she faced alone. You have no idea." "I'm so sorry," Noah whispered, his voice breaking. "I know I don't deserve it." "No, you don't," Regina cut him off. "But those kids do. They deserve to know who their father is if you're really willing to be one. But I'm going to warn you something, Noah Richardson. If you plan on coming into their lives, you'd better stay, because if you hurt them like you hurt Naomi, there's no place in this world where you can hide from me." Noah wiped away the tears, meeting Regina's eyes. "I want to do the right thing. I need to do the right thing." "Doing the right thing isn't a one-off decision, Noah. It's a choice you need to make every day, over and over again. Naomi has agreed to talk to you when you're discharged. Don't waste that chance." Regina walked to the door but stopped before she left. "The boys asked about you. Naomi said you were an old friend who wasn't feeling well. She's always been better than you deserve." After Regina left, Noah was left alone with his thoughts. The photos on his cell phone seemed to belong to another life, a life where he still had the right to dream of a future with Naomi. Now all that remained were the consequences of his choices and a faint hope of redemption. Daniel returned a few minutes later to find his friend still lost in thought. "Regina was always intimidating," he commented, trying to lighten the mood. "She's right in every word," Noah replied. "Dan, I need your help. I need to prepare for this conversation with Naomi. I need to find a way to prove that I can be the father those boys deserve." "And what are you thinking of doing?" "First, I need to reorganize my whole life, my schedule, my priorities. Everything needs to change. I can't just be the dad who turns up at weekends with presents. I need to be really present." Daniel nodded, watching the determination grow on his friend's face. "You know it won't be easy, right? Naomi has built a life without you." "I know," Noah replied, his voice firm for the first time that day. "But those boys are my sons. And even if Naomi never forgives me, and I wouldn't blame her for that, I need to try to be the father they deserve. I need to try to fix what I've broken, even if it takes the rest of my life." The sun was beginning to set through the hospital window, painting the room in orange hues. Noah knew that this day marked not only the end of his old life, but the beginning of a journey that would require every ounce of strength and determination he possessed. The image of the twins, their innocent smiles, their curious eyes, was etched in his mind, a constant reminder of what he had lost and what he could still, perhaps, regain. The cafeteria at the Prudential Center was relatively quiet that Wednesday morning. Noah arrived 20 minutes before the scheduled time, his sweaty hands betraying his nervousness as he clutched a brown briefcase. After 3 days in hospital and a week preparing for this moment, he would finally have the chance to talk to Naomi. He chose a discreet table in the corner, overlooking the windows that showed the gray Boston sky. At precisely 10 o'clock, Naomi showed up. Even though she was dressed casually in jeans and a navy blue sweater, her presence caused that familiar feeling of breathlessness in Noah. "Thanks for coming," he said, standing up as she sat down. "Let's make one thing clear," Naomi began, her tone controlled but firm. "I'm here because my children deserve to know the truth about their origins, not because of you." Noah nodded, swallowing. "I understand. And I appreciate the opportunity." A waitress approached, and Naomi ordered a chamomile tea. Noah declined any order, his stomach too nervous to consider food or drink. "How are they?" he asked softly, after the waitress had walked away. "They're fine. At nursery now," Naomi replied, her fingers drumming lightly on the table. "Mason had a performance yesterday. He sang Old MacDonald in front of the whole class. Miles preferred to stay backstage, helping with the set. They may be identical, but they're completely different in personality." Noah absorbed every word, like a thirsty man in the desert. "Mason is the more outgoing one, then?" "Yes. Miles is more observant, more cautious with new people, but when he feels safe, he talks out of his ass." A small smile appeared on his lips as he spoke about his children, but it soon disappeared. "Noah, what exactly do you want?" He opened the folder he had brought with him, taking out some documents. "First, I want you to know that I'm not here to cause trouble or disrupt the life you've built. But I do want to be a part of their lives, if you'll let me." Naomi took the papers he offered. "What are these?" "These are documents from my lawyer. I'm officially recognizing the paternity of the boys and establishing alimony retroactive to the last 3 years, plus interest. There's also a proposed agreement for supervised visits, on your terms." She examined the documents in silence for a few minutes. The waitress returned with her tea, creating a brief break in the tension. "Why now, Noah?" she finally asked, her voice betraying a vulnerability he rarely saw. "Why not 3 years ago, when I needed you most?" Noah felt the weight of that question in every fiber of his being. "Because 3 years ago I was a coward. I was scared of responsibility, obsessed with my career, and I made the biggest mistake of my life. There's no justification for what I did, Naomi, but seeing our children, realizing everything I'd lost, it changed something fundamental in me. Words are easy, Noah. You've always been good with them. I know. That's why I brought this too." He slid another document across the table. "I've resigned from my position as financial director. I've accepted a less demanding position in the company, with flexible hours and less travel. I want to have real time to be present in their lives." This took Naomi by surprise. She knew how much that position meant to him. It was partly because of that ambition that their marriage had ended. "Did you really give up your position?" "Yes. Some things are more important than status or money. It took me too long to realize that." Naomi took a sip of her tea, processing the information. "The boys asked about you after that day. They're very perceptive for their age. What did you tell them?" The truth that you're someone from our past who has reappeared. They're too young to understand the full complexity of the situation. Noah leaned forward slightly. How do you want to conduct this? I'll follow your lead on everything. We need to go slowly, Naomi replied after a long pause. First, I want you to talk to their therapist. Dr. Bennett has been helping us deal with emotional issues, and she can advise on the best way to make this introduction. Of course, absolutely. And Noah, her eyes met his with intensity. If you start this, you can't give up halfway. They've already grown up without a father for 3 years. I won't allow them to come in and out of their lives like toys that you can put down when you get tired. I promise, Naomi, I'll do everything right this time. She put the documents in her bag and stood up. I'll go over it with my lawyer, and I'll make an appointment with Dr. Bennett. She'll be in touch to schedule it. Before she could walk away, Noah called out, Naomi, thank you. I know I don't deserve this chance. You're right, you don't, she replied, but her tone was softer. But Mason and Miles deserve the chance to meet their father. Don't waste it. Noah watched as she left the cafe, her posture elegant and determined, just as he remembered it. He looked out of the window, watching her cross the square towards the subway. The grey sky was beginning to lighten slightly, and he allowed himself to feel a small glimmer of hope. Picking up his phone, he typed a message to Daniel. She's agreed to consider it. I'll meet the boy's therapist first. The reply came quickly. First step taken. Now we have to keep going. Noah put his phone away and sat for a few more minutes, visualizing his sons' faces. Mason, the extrovert, Miles, the observer, 2 little lives that he had helped to create but didn't yet know. The magnitude of the task ahead of him was daunting, but for the first time in 3 years, he felt he was doing something truly meaningful. He got up, leaving a few notes for the tea that Naomi had barely touched. Outside, the sun was finally beginning to break through the clouds, as if reflecting the small opening that had just appeared in his life. The road would be long and difficult, but he was determined to see it through to the end. Dr. Bennett's office was welcoming, with walls in soft shades of green and a panoramic view of the Charles River. Noah sat on the beige leather sofa, trying to control his anxiety as the therapist went over his notes. Mr. Richardson, began Dr. Bennett, a woman in her 50s with piercing eyes behind gold-framed glasses. I've been working with Mason and Miles for almost 2 years. They are extraordinarily sensitive and intelligent children. How do they cope with my absence? Noah asked, his voice betraying his apprehension. The therapist adjusted her glasses. Children process absence in different ways. Mason occasionally expresses curiosity about you through his play. He creates stories about lost parents who return as heroes. Miles, on the other hand, demonstrates his unease through a more protective behavior towards his mother. Noah felt every word like a needle in his chest. I've caused so much damage. The past can't be changed, Mr. Richardson. The question now is, how can we build a healthy future for these children? I'll do anything necessary. Dr. Bennett leaned forward. Let me be very clear. Reintroducing an absent father into the lives of young children is a delicate process. We need to set clear boundaries and realistic expectations. Boys have developed emotional protection mechanisms that need to be respected. How should we proceed? First, I suggest supervised meetings in a neutral environment, here in my office. Initially, you'll be introduced as a friend of the family, someone who wants to get to know them better. We need to build trust before revealing your true role in their lives. Noah nodded, absorbing every word. And how long should this process take? That will depend entirely on the boy's response. It could be weeks or months. The important thing is to respect their rhythm. The conversation was interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Dr. Bennett's assistant entered with a folder. The photos Mrs. Williams sent, Doctor. Noah straightened up on the sofa. Photos? The therapist opened the folder, revealing several photographs of the twins over the years. Naomi documented important moments. I thought you might like to see them. With trembling hands, Noah picked up the first photo. The newborn boys in the hospital, so small and fragile, their throats still marked by their identification bracelets. The next one showed their first birthday, their faces smeared with cake, then their first steps, first days at nursery, moments in the park. They're so alike, but so different, he murmured, noticing the small distinctions in their expressions. Mason has always been more expressive in photos, explained Dr. Bennett. Miles tends to have a more contemplative look. These are characteristics that persist to this day. Noah paused at a particular photo. The boys sleeping cuddled up, about a year ago. Are they close? Very. They have that special twin connection, but they've also developed a dependence on each other as a protective mechanism. It's something we'll need to consider carefully during this process. Reluctantly handing back the photos, Noah asked, "What's the next step?" "I've scheduled a session for Saturday. The boys will come with Naomi, and you'll be introduced. Remember, be natural. Don't force interactions. Let them set the pace of the contact. What if they don't like me?" Dr. Bennett smiled softly. "Children have an incredible capacity to love, Mr. Richardson, but they also have a keen radar for authenticity. Be genuine in your interactions, even if they are initially limited." Noah ran his hands over his face, trying to contain his emotion. "You know, I've spent the last 3 years building a life that now seems completely empty. Seeing these photos, realizing all that I've lost. Regret can be a powerful engine for change," the therapist observed, "but don't let it paralyze you. Focus on the present and the future you can build with your children." "How can I make up for lost time?" "You can't," she answered directly, "but you can create new moments, new memories. Lost time is lost, Mr. Richardson. What matters is what you do with the time you have ahead of you." The session ended with practical advice on how to behave on a first date. On his way out of the office, Noah stopped at reception to confirm Saturday's appointment. His reflection in the glass of the door caught his eye. For the first time in a long time, he saw not just a successful man in his expensive suit, but a father who had failed his children. In the elevator, he took out his phone and opened the gallery. Among photos of business meetings and corporate events, there was now a new album, Mason and Miles, containing the photos that Naomi had allowed Dr. Bennett to share with him. Looking at the smiling faces of his sons, Noah made a silent promise. No matter how long it took or how difficult the road, he would be the father those boys deserved, the father he should have been from the start. The elevator reached the first floor, and he stepped out into the sunny Boston afternoon. In 3 days, he would officially meet his sons. The thought filled him with equal measures of dread and hope, but for the first time in his life, Noah Richardson was ready to face up to his responsibilities, no matter what the cost. Saturday dawned with a typical Boston autumnal glow. Noah arrived at Dr. Bennett's office an hour ahead of schedule, his heart beating so hard he could feel it in his throat. He had chosen casual clothes, jeans, a light blue polo shirt and comfortable sneakers, following his therapist's advice to look more approachable. The children's therapy room was different from the formal office he had been in a few days earlier. Toys arranged on colorful shelves, a low table with drawing materials, and cushions scattered on the floor created a welcoming atmosphere. "He's nervous," observed Dr. Bennett, entering the room. "Terrified would be a more accurate word," Noah admitted, his restless hands adjusting his shirt sleeves for the 10th time. "Remember what we talked about," she said softly. "Be authentic, but don't force approaches. Let them set the pace." A soft knock on the door announced Naomi's arrival with the twins. Noah felt his heart stop for a moment when the 2 small figures entered the room, holding their mother's hands. Mason and Miles were dressed similarly, khaki shorts and different t-shirts, one red and the other green, probably to help people tell them apart. Their curly hair was identical, as were the large, expressive eyes that were now watching them curiously. "Boys," began Dr. Bennett with a warm smile. "This is Noah, the friend I mentioned we'd meet today." Mason, wearing the red t-shirt, was the first to step forward. "Hi, do you like dinosaurs?" Noah felt a genuine smile appear on his face. "Actually, yes. My favorite is the Triceratops." "Mine's the T-Rex," Mason exclaimed excitedly. "Miles likes the—" "What is it, Miles?" Miles, still close to Naomi, replied quietly. "Pterodactyl. Because it flies," Mason explained, as if it were obvious. Noah nodded seriously. "That's an excellent choice. They were very clever, you know. They had to calculate air currents to fly better." Miles' eyes lit up slightly at this information, although he remained by his mother's side. Dr. Bennett gestured to the low table where there were drawing materials. "How about we draw some dinosaurs?" Mason rushed to the table immediately. Miles hesitated, looking at Naomi, who nodded encouragingly. "It's all right, darling. I'll be right over here." Gradually, everyone settled around the table. Noah consciously chose to sit opposite the boys and giving them space. Mason was already busy with a red pencil, drawing what looked like a very excited T-Rex. "Can you draw a pterodactyl?" Miles asked quietly, surprising everyone. Noah grabbed a piece of paper. I can try. Do you want to help me? You probably know best what the wings should look like. Over the next hour, the initial tension dissolved as they drew and talked about dinosaurs. Noah discovered that Mason loved making dinosaur sounds. Rawr! While Miles knew an impressive amount of facts about different species. Mom took us to the museum, Mason explained, coloring vigorously. It had giant skeletons. It was your birthday, Miles added, his voice a little more confident now. We turned 3. Noah swallowed, feeling Naomi's gaze on him. It must have been incredible. It was the best, Mason agreed. Then we had chocolate cake with strawberries. Mason ate 3 pieces, Miles revealed with a small smile. It wasn't 3, Mason protested, laughing. It was only 2.5. The naturalness of the interaction between the twins made Noah's heart ache. There was so much he didn't know about them, so many missed moments. Noah, Miles' voice, brought him back to the present. Are you coming back another day so we can draw more? The question took everyone by surprise. Noah glanced quickly at Naomi and Dr. Bennett before answering carefully. If it's okay with your mom and you guys want to, I'd love to come back. Naomi nodded slightly, her eyes meeting his briefly before turning to the boys. It's getting late, darlings. We need to go to Grandma Regina's for lunch. Oh, Mom, Mason protested. Just one more drawing. We can save the drawings to finish at the next meeting, suggested Dr. Bennett. What do you think? Miles was already carefully organizing the papers, his methodical nature evident. Mason reluctantly put down his pencils. Bye, Noah. Mason waved cheerfully. Next time, I'll draw a velociraptor. Bye, Miles said more softly, but with a small smile. Noah watched as Naomi led the boys out of the room, his heart so full he could hardly breathe. When the door closed, he finally let the tears fall. You did great, Doctor. Bennett commented gently, offering him a tissue. They're amazing, Noah managed to say. So different and so perfect. This is just the beginning, the therapist reminded him, but it was a very promising start. Miles, especially, surprised me with his openness today. Noah carefully put away his unfinished drawing of the pterodactyl, knowing that it would be treasured forever. When can we meet again? I'll talk to Naomi and arrange it. But Noah, she waited until he looked at her. Remember, consistency is crucial now. Every promise you make, every commitment you make, needs to be kept. He nodded, determined. I won't let you down, not ever again. Leaving the office, Noah walked to the nearby public garden. He sat on a bench, watching other families strolling in the park. For the first time in 3 years, he didn't feel envy or regret at seeing parents with their children. Instead, he felt hope, the hope that one day he too would be there, walking with Mason and Miles, hearing about dinosaurs and sharing smiles that were theirs alone. 2 weeks had passed since their first meeting, and Noah was now preparing for his 3rd session with the boys. The supervised visits had settled into a Saturday morning routine, each one revealing new facets of his son's personalities. That morning, however, something was different. When she arrived at the office, she found only Naomi in the waiting room, her expression tense. Miles has a fever, she explained before he could ask. Mason insisted on coming, but is he all right? Noah interrupted, concern evident in his voice. It's just a cold, but you know how little kids get. She stopped, realizing that no, he didn't. Anyway, Mason's with Dr. Bennett. He specifically asked to come and see you. Noah's heart raced at this information. It was the first time he would see one of the twins without the other, and the fact that Mason had insisted on keeping the appointment meant a lot. Inside the therapy room, Mason was sitting on the carpet, arranging plastic dinosaurs in an elaborate configuration. When he saw Noah, his face lit up. Noah, look, I brought my dinosaurs. Miles let me bring his too because he's sick. That was really nice of him, Noah commented, taking a seat on the carpet. How's he feeling? Sad, Mason answered honestly. We're never apart, but I promised to tell him everything later. Dr. Bennett watched the interaction with interest, while Naomi remained near the door, her presence a silent constant. Do you want me to show you something cool? Noah asked, taking something out of his backpack. It was a picture book about dinosaurs that he had bought after carefully researching the recommendations for the boys' age. Mason's eyes widened. Wow, you've got them all. Almost all of them. I thought you and Miles might like them. Mom, Mason called out excitedly. Can I take it to show Miles? Naomi hesitated for a moment before nodding. As long as you take good care of him. I'll take super good care of it, Mason promised solemnly, just like Miles takes care of his books. For the next hour, Noah and Mason leafed through the book together, with the boy asking endless questions about each creature. It was amazing how he could absorb complex information, even at just 3 years old. Noah, Mason asked suddenly, his voice more serious, why did you only come to see us now? The silence fell heavy in the room. Noah felt Naomi and Dr. Bennett's gaze on him, but kept his eyes on the small face in front of him. It's complicated, he began carefully. Sometimes adults make mistakes, big mistakes. But I'm very happy to be here now. Mason seemed to consider this for a moment. Miles thinks you're leaving again. Noah felt as if someone had punched him in the stomach. What do you think? I don't think so, Mason replied, turning his attention back to the dinosaurs. Because you draw nice pictures and you know nice stories, and because you look at us like Mom does. What do you mean? Noah asked softly. Like happy and sad at the same time, Mason explained with the profound simplicity that only children possess. Noah swallowed the lump in his throat. Mason, I promise I won't leave. I'll be here whenever you and Miles want to see me. Pinky, promise? Mason held out his tiny finger. Pinky promise, Noah agreed, intertwining his finger with his son's. When the session ended, Mason spontaneously hugged Noah before leaving, the first physical contact they had ever shared. The gesture, so simple and pure, almost knocked Noah over. Naomi, he called out as she prepared to leave with Mason, if Miles is still feverish tomorrow, I know an excellent pediatrician, Dr. Richards, at Mass General. I can make an appointment if you like. She paused, studying his face for a moment. Thank you, I'll keep that in mind. After they left, Dr. Bennett approached Noah. Today was significant. Mason showed a level of trust we didn't expect so soon. He's so open, so affectionate, Noah commented. And Miles, even though he wasn't here today, his presence was constant in the conversation. The bond between them is extraordinary, the therapist agreed. But what struck me most was Mason's intuition about her gaze. Happy and sad at the same time, he perfectly captured the complexity of her emotions. Noah ran his hands over his face. They're so small, but they understand so much. Children often surprise us with their capacity for emotional understanding. The question now is, how will you honor that pinky promise? With every breath I take, Noah answered without hesitation. That hug, it was like something broke and mended inside me at the same time. Leaving the office, Noah walked to his car but didn't get in immediately. He stood still, looking at his little finger, where he could still feel his son's small, trusting touch. The simplicity of that promise carried the weight of all his past failures and all his future hopes. Her phone vibrated. A message from Naomi. Miles has asked if you can bring the book next week too. He wants to see it with you. Noah smiled, typing his reply. Sure, I hope he gets better soon. Getting into the car, he realized that Mason's little gesture of trust had changed something fundamental. It wasn't just a pinky promise. It was a sacred contract with his children, one he intended to honor for the rest of his life. The phone call came at 11:42 p.m. on a rainy Wednesday. Noah was reviewing some reports when Naomi's name flashed up on his cell phone screen. His heart raced instantly. She never called, let alone at that hour. Hello? He answered, trying to control the panic in his voice. Noah. Naomi's voice sounded tense. Miles has a very high fever. We're going to Mass General. He was already reaching for his keys. I'm on my way. Do you want me to call Dr. Richards? Please. Mason's terrified. I've never seen Miles like this. I'll meet you there. 20 minutes later, Noah was running through the pediatric emergency room. He found Naomi sitting in a plastic chair, Mason asleep on her lap, while she absent-mindedly stroked his hair. Where is he? Noah asked breathlessly. They're doing tests, she replied, her voice betraying exhaustion. The fever won't go away. Noah sat down next to her, observing Mason's restless sleep. Doctor, Richards is on his way. He's the best pediatrician in the hospital. Thank you for coming, Naomi said softly. I didn't know if I should call, but of course you should, he interrupted gently. They're our children. The use of the pronoun our hung between them, loaded with meaning. Before they could elaborate, Dr. Richards appeared in the hallway. Mrs. Williams? Mr. Richardson? Can you come with me? Mason stirred, opening his eyes sleepily. Where's Miles? We're going to see your brother now, darling, Naomi replied, getting up with him on her lap. In the examination room, Miles was lying on a hospital bed, looking impossibly small between the white sheets. His eyes snapped open when he heard his family come in. "Hey, champ," Noah said softly, approaching the bed. "Noah," Miles murmured, holding out a fever-hot hand. The spontaneous gesture took everyone by surprise. Noah held his hand gently, feeling the heat of the fever through the contact. "Miles has a serious bacterial infection," explained Dr. Richards. "We're going to start intravenous antibiotics immediately. He'll need to be hospitalized for a few days." Mason squirmed in Naomi's lap. "I want to stay with him." "We can't separate the twins," Naomi told the doctor. "They've never slept apart." Dr. Richards smiled understandingly. "We can get an extra bed in the room. It's not standard protocol, but I'll make an exception." The next few hours were a blur of nurses, medications, and transfer to a private room. Noah used his influence in the hospital to ensure the best possible care, even though he knew there was nothing he could do but wait for the antibiotics to take effect. Around 3 in the morning, Miles finally fell asleep, his hand still holding Noah's. Mason was curled up in the extra bed next to him, also asleep. Naomi occupied a nearby armchair, fighting sleep. "You should get some rest," Noah suggested softly. "I can't," she replied, her eyes fixed on the boys. "Every time I close my eyes, I imagine something going wrong." "I'll keep watch," he offered. "I promise to wake you if anything changes." She hesitated, studying his face for a moment. "You've changed," she finally said. "I had to change." They changed everything. The silence that followed was interrupted only by the soft beeps of the monitors and the boys' regular breathing. "You know," Naomi began, her voice almost a whisper, "when I found out I was pregnant with twins, my first thought was how you would have reacted if you had stayed. Would you have panicked even more?" "I would have," Noah admitted, "and that's my biggest regret. I missed so many moments. Moments like this, even if they were scary. The first time they got sick," she continued, "it was a double ear infection. They were 8 months old. I stayed up all night, holding them both, singing until my voice failed." Noah felt tears well up in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Naomi. I'm sorry I wasn't there." "I'm beginning to believe that you really have changed," she said after a long moment. "The way you dropped everything and came running, how you're coping with it all." "I'm not doing anything other than what I should have done from the start," he replied, gently adjusting the blanket over Miles. The night progressed slowly. Around 5 in the morning, Miles' fever began to subside. Mason woke up briefly, crawled into his brother's bed, and went back to sleep cuddled up to him, a scene that made Noah's heart ache with its purity. As the sun began to rise, painting the room in golden hues, Noah realized that Naomi had finally fallen asleep in the armchair. Quietly, he covered her with an extra blanket he had asked the nurse for. Sitting between his 3 most important people in the world, Noah felt something settle in his chest, a deep certainty that, no matter what happened from now on, this was where he belonged, next to his children, sharing both the moments of joy and the moments of worry. The nurse came in to check the vital signs, smiling as she saw the familiar scene. "You're a beautiful family," she commented softly. Noah didn't correct her. Instead, he looked at his sleeping children cuddled together and Naomi resting in the armchair, and thought about how sometimes the worst nights can build the most important bridges, invisible bridges that connect hearts separated by time and past mistakes. 6 weeks after Miles' hospitalization, the dynamic between Noah and his family had changed subtly. The supervised visits at Dr. Bennett's office continued, but now there were also small, unplanned moments, a chance meeting at the supermarket, an afternoon in the park when Noah passed through the neighborhood. That Sunday morning, Noah was waiting nervously at the Boston Children's Museum. It was the first time Naomi had agreed to a program outside the controlled environment of the office. The boys didn't know he was coming, a carefully planned surprise with Dr. Bennett's approval. "Noah!" Mason's excited shout echoed through the museum lobby. The boy ran towards him, with Miles right behind, while Naomi followed at a more controlled pace. "You really came!" Miles exclaimed, his initial shyness long since replaced by a growing confidence in Noah's presence. "Of course I came," Noah smiled, crouching down so that he was at their height. "I wouldn't miss the chance to explore the museum with my favorite scientists." "There's a new exhibition on space," Mason reported enthusiastically, "and a place where you can make giant bubbles." "And a science lab," Miles added, his eyes twinkling. Noah looked at Naomi, seeking her approval. She nodded slightly, a small smile on her lips. The next few hours were filled with discovery and wonder. In the construction area, Noah helped the boys erect an impressive structure with giant blocks. In the science lab, they conducted simple experiments that made the twins' eyes widen in amazement. "Look, Noah," Miles called out, creating a soap bubble the size of his head. "It's almost a planet." "It's like Jupiter," Mason agreed, trying to make one even bigger. Noah watched his children with a mixture of pride and admiration. Every little discovery, every moment of joy was a gift he had almost lost forever. During lunch in the museum cafeteria, as the boys devoured their sandwiches, Naomi leaned over to speak softly to Noah. "They have a performance at school next week, a play about the solar system." Noah felt his heart race at the implication. "Would they like me to go?" "Mason is Mars and Miles is Saturn," she continued, as if she hadn't heard his question. "It's on Thursday at 2 in the afternoon." "I'll be there," Noah replied immediately. "I'll rearrange my entire schedule." "Mom," Mason interrupted, "can I show Noah my costume when I get home?" A tense silence fell over the table. It was the first time the possibility of Noah coming to their house had arisen. Naomi hesitated for a moment before answering. "Maybe another time, darling. Today we have to go to Grandma Regina's house after here. Remember?" Noah kept his face neutral, although his heart squeezed. It was a reminder that, despite progress, there were still limits to be respected. The afternoon continued in the museum's planetarium, where the twins sat between Noah and Naomi, their little faces marveling at the constellations projected on the ceiling. "That's the Big Dipper," Miles whispered, pointing upwards. "And that's the Little Dipper," Mason added. "Do you know why they have those names?" Noah asked softly. When the boys nodded, he began to tell the mythological story of the bears in the sky. Soon, other families around were listening too, enchanted by the narrative. At the end of the day, as they walked to the parking lot, Mason held Noah's hand and Miles held Naomi's hand. It was an image that might seem ordinary to any outside observer, a normal family ending a Sunday at the museum, but for Noah, it was a precious moment that he would treasure forever. "Noah," Miles called out when they reached the cars, "are you really going to our play?" "I wouldn't miss it for the world," Noah promised, crouching down again. "I can't wait to see Saturn and Mars shine." The boys hugged him simultaneously, something that was happening more often now, before getting into Naomi's car. "Thank you for the day," Naomi said softly. "They really enjoyed themselves." "Me too," Noah replied, "more than I can express." As Naomi's car disappeared around the bend, Noah stood still for a moment, taking in everything that had happened. His phone vibrated, a message from Dr. Bennett asking how the day had been. "It was perfect," he replied simply. Driving home, Noah thought about the upcoming school play. It would be the first time he had taken part in an official event in the boys' lives. The thought filled him with a mixture of anxiety and joy. In his apartment, he went straight to his office, where a new calendar dominated an entire wall. On it, in addition to work appointments, there were now important milestones, scheduled visits, appointments with Dr. Bennett, and now circled in red, the date of the school play. It was a visual reminder of how his life had changed, from a career-focused executive to a father who organized his existence around moments with his children. And although there was still a long way to go, days like the one at the museum showed that he was heading in the right direction. Before going to sleep, he received a photo from Naomi. The boys asleep in the back seat of the car, still wearing the junior scientist stickers they had won at the museum. It was a small kindness from her, a silent acknowledgement of her right to participate in these moments, even if from a distance. Noah fell asleep smiling, dreaming of planets, stars, and two little astronauts who had conquered his entire universe. The school auditorium was packed that Thursday. Noah arrived 40 minutes early, his heart beating fast as he looked for a place to sit. He spotted Regina a few rows ahead and, after a moment's hesitation, decided to approach her. "May I?" he asked, indicating the empty seat next to her. Regina studied him for a moment before nodding. "Naomi told me you were coming. I wouldn't miss it," Noah replied, nervously adjusting his tie. He had come straight from an important meeting, but had made sure that nothing interfered with this moment. "Miles had a little anxiety attack earlier," Regina commented, her voice softer than usual. "He asked about you." Noah felt his heart squeeze. "Is he okay now?" "Yes. Naomi is backstage with them. Mason has been helping to calm his brother down. They have that special way about them." The buzz in the auditorium died down as the lights began to dim. Noah felt his hands sweat as the curtain opened, revealing an elaborate set of the solar system. The narrator began the presentation, and one by one, the planets entered the stage. Mason appeared first, his red Mars costume shining under the lights. He spun and jumped with confidence, drawing smiles from the audience. When it was Saturn's turn, Noah held his breath. Miles entered shyly, his golden ringed costume impressive. For a moment, he seemed to hesitate, but then his eyes found Noah in the audience. A small smile appeared on his face, and he began his choreography with surprising grace. "He saw you," Regina whispered. It calmed him down. Noah just nodded, unable to speak through the knot in his throat. The performance continued, with the planets dancing in their orbits around the sun. In a particularly touching moment, Mars and Saturn came close, performing a little dance together that wasn't in the original script, a demonstration of the twins' unique connection. When the curtains closed, the audience erupted in applause. Noah stood up immediately, but Regina put a hand on his arm. "Wait," she said, "let Naomi have this moment with them first. She'll call you." 15 minutes later, which seemed like an eternity, Noah received a message from Naomi with directions to the backstage area. When he got there, he was greeted by two small projectiles, one red and one gold, that launched themselves into his arms. "Did you see it? Did you see it?" Mason asked excitedly. "I saw everything," Noah replied, hugging them both. "You were incredible." "I didn't miss a step," Miles said proudly. "Even though I was nervous." "You were perfect," Noah assured him. "The rings of Saturn have never shone so bright." Naomi watched the scene with a soft expression that Noah couldn't decipher. She was holding two small gift baskets. "The boys have something for you," she said. Mason and Miles ran up to her, taking the baskets and returning to Noah. Inside each was a gold paper medal with "Best Dad in the Solar System" written in childish letters. Noah felt tears welling up before he could stop them. It was the first time the boys had openly acknowledged him as their father, even through a simple gift. "Mom helped us make it," Miles explained. "We wanted to tell you that we know," Mason added. "Dr. Bennett said it was fine." Noah looked at Naomi, who nodded slightly. They had discussed this moment with the therapist, carefully planning how and when to reveal the truth to the boys. Are you okay with this?" Noah asked softly. "Sometimes I get angry," Miles admitted honestly. "But now you're here. And you're not leaving again," Mason added. It wasn't a question, but a confident statement. "Never," Noah promised, his voice breaking. "Never again." Regina approached at that moment, carrying a camera. "How about a family photo?" Noah looked uncertainly at Naomi, but she was already positioning herself next to the boys. He joined them, Mason and Miles in the center, still in their planet costumes. "Say solar system," Regina instructed. The flash went off, capturing a moment that would be framed and hung in 3 different houses: Noah's, Naomi's, and Regina's. A photo that showed not just 4 people smiling, but a family finding its own kind of orbit. Later, while the boys were changing, Naomi approached Noah. "They'd been asking for weeks about how to tell you they knew," she explained. "Dr. Bennett thought today would be perfect, a day of achievement." "Thank you," Noah said simply, "for allowing it, for helping you with the medals, for everything." "They're your children too," she replied softly. "And you've proved that over the last few months." When the boys returned, already in their normal clothes but still carrying their fantastiques with pride, Noah realized that something fundamental had changed. He was no longer just the friend Noah who came over to play sometimes. He was officially a father, with all the joys and responsibilities that entailed. "Ice cream to celebrate," Regina suggested, much to the twins' delight. As they all walked together to the nearby ice cream parlor, Noah carrying the fantastic planets and listening to Mason and Miles animatedly debating their favorite flavors, he understood that he was finally home, not in a physical place, but in the orbit of those little stars that had changed his universe forever. It was a typical Saturday morning when the phone call came. Noah was getting ready for another scheduled visit when Naomi called, her voice tense. "Noah, I need a huge favor. My mom had a fall, and I need to go to the hospital with her. Could you stay with the boys?" he added, his heart racing. "Of course. Would you like me to come to your house?" There was a significant pause. "Yes," she finally replied. "Can it be in half an hour?" It was the first time Noah had been to their home, the sacred space Naomi had built to raise her children alone. The importance of this moment was not lost on him. 30 minutes later, he parked in front of a modest but well-kept house in Dorchester. The small front garden had toys scattered around and a tree with a simple swing. It was perfectly homely. Naomi opened the door before he could ring the bell. "Thanks for coming so quickly. The kids are still asleep. They usually wake up around 9 on weekends." She seemed nervous, not just about the situation with Regina, but about having him there, in her space. "It'll be fine," Noah assured her. "Go and look after your mother. Keep me informed, please." Naomi nodded, picking up her bag. "There's food in the fridge. The emergency numbers are on the door. Oh, and Miles sometimes has nightmares after he wakes up, so if he seems scared—" "Naomi," Noah interrupted gently, "I'll take care of them. Go." After she left, Noah stood in the middle of the living room, absorbing every detail. Photos of the boys at different ages covered the walls. First steps, first smiles, birthdays, an entire life he had missed, documented in pictures. A soft noise upstairs indicated that the twins were waking up. Noah climbed the stairs silently, finding his way to their room through the stuffed dinosaurs and children's books scattered around the hallway. "Noah," Mason exclaimed sleepily when he saw him at the door. "Where's Mommy?" "She had to take Grandma Regina to the doctor," he explained softly. "So I'm going to spend the morning with you, okay?" Miles, still wrapped in his solar system blanket, looked slightly anxious. "Is Grandma ill?" "She had a little fall, but she'll be fine," Noah assured him, taking a seat on the edge of Miles' bed. "Your mom will take care of her." "Can we have breakfast?" Mason asked, already jumping out of bed. "Sure. What do you normally eat?" "Pancakes," they both replied in unison. In the kitchen, Noah discovered that making pancakes for 2 3-year-old boys was quite an adventure. Mason insisted on helping stir the batter, while Miles carefully supervised the amount of chocolate chips. "Mommy makes faces on the pancakes," Miles informed him. "Oh yeah?" Noah grinned, using chocolate chips to create eyes and a smile on the pancake. "Like this." The boys laughed approvingly, and soon they were all sitting at the kitchen table, eating pancakes with smiles and talking about their plans for the day. It was during this conversation that Noah noticed a drawing pinned up on the fridge. 3 stick figures, one larger and 2 smaller, all holding hands. "I made it," Mason said, following his gaze. "It's you with us at the museum." Noah felt his throat tighten. "That's very nice, champ." "There's more," Miles added shyly. "In our room. We draw you a lot." After breakfast, the boys took him on a tour of the house. His room was a fascinating mix of dinosaurs and planets, with 2 identical beds separated by a shared bedside table. "This is the special corner," Mason explained, showing a wall covered in drawings. And there they were, dozens of drawings of him with the boys, some from before he even reappeared in their lives. "We imagined what you were like," Miles explained softly, "before we really got to know you." Noah knelt between his sons, fighting back tears. "Can I hold you?" The boys threw themselves into his arms without hesitation. It was amazing how natural these moments had become over the last few months. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of games, stories, and discoveries. Noah learned the little routines that were part of the boys' lives, how Miles always organized his toys by color, how Mason hummed while he drew, how the 2 of them always checked with each other before making any decisions. When Naomi returned in the early afternoon, Regina had twisted her ankle but was fine. She found the 3 of them asleep on the living room sofa, a storybook open on Noah's lap. She stood still for a moment, observing the scene. It was an image she had imagined thousands of times in the early months of her pregnancy, Noah with his children, at home, in peace. Reality had taken 3 years to catch up with that dream, but somehow it seemed even more meaningful now. "Hey," Noah whispered, opening his eyes. "How's Regina?" "She'll be fine," she replied softly, taking a seat in the nearby armchair. "How was it here?" "Perfect," he smiled, looking at the sleeping boys. "They're just perfect." Naomi nodded, a small smile on her lips. "You know, this is the first time I've seen them sleep so peacefully with someone other than me." The words hung in the air, loaded with meaning. It was more than a compliment. It was an acknowledgement that Noah had finally found his place in the boys' lives. "Naomi," he began hesitantly, "thank you for giving me this chance, for trusting me today." "You've proved that you deserve that trust," she replied simply. Day after day, choice after choice, as the twins continued their peaceful sleep, Noah realized that that morning had changed something fundamental. He was no longer just a visitor in his children's lives. He was part of their routine, their home, their history in the making. And maybe, just maybe, that was only the beginning. Autumn arrived in Boston with unexpected fury. 3 months had passed since that first morning at Naomi's house, and the family dynamic had settled into a comfortable routine. Noah now regularly spent Saturday mornings with the boys, in addition to visits during the week when possible. On that particular evening, however, something was different. A violent storm was raging in the city, and Noah received a message from Naomi that made his heart squeeze. "Miles is having a panic attack because of the thunder. He asked for you." Without hesitation, Noah grabbed his car and drove through the pouring rain to their house. He found Naomi on the doorstep, looking exhausted. "He's in his room," she said simply. Mason's trying to calm him down, but a particularly loud clap of thunder shook the house, followed by a frightened scream from upstairs. Noah climbed the stairs every 2 steps. In the boy's room, he found Miles curled up on his bed, shivering, while Mason held his hand. The scene broke his heart. "Hey, champ," Noah said softly, approaching the bed. "Can I join you?" Miles raised his watery eyes and nodded. Noah sat on the edge of the bed, and the boy immediately threw himself into his arms. "It's too noisy," Miles sobbed against his chest. "I know," Noah replied, hugging him tightly. "But you know what? When I was little, I was scared of storms too." This captured both boys' attention. "Really?" Mason asked, sitting down on Noah's other side. "True, until my dad taught me a special trick." "What trick?" Miles asked, his voice still shaking. Noah smiled, picking up his cell phone. "Let's count the seconds between the lightning and the thunder. The more seconds, the further away the storm is. It's like a game." Another flash of lightning lit up the room. 1, 2, 3. They counted together until the thunder sounded. "See? 3 seconds. That means the storm is 3 kilometers from here," Noah explained. "And it's going to get further away?" Miles asked hopefully. "Yes, let's keep counting and you'll see." Naomi watched from the doorway, a soft expression on her face. It was the first time she had seen Noah dealing with a difficult emotional situation with the boys, and he was doing surprisingly well. As the night progressed, the numbers between lightning and thunder increased. Miles gradually relaxed in Noah's arms, while Mason, ever protective, stayed alert by their side. "How about I tell you a story while we wait for the storm to pass?" Noah suggested. "About what?" the twins asked in unison. "About 2 little warriors who weren't afraid of anything, because they knew they would always have each other." Naomi felt her own tears as Noah began the story, a slightly modified version of how the boys had supported each other since they were babies. How Mason had always known when Miles needed comforting, and how Miles had always understood Mason's unspoken fears. Gradually, the boys' eyes began to grow heavy. The storm was now just a distant murmur, and their counts had reached 10 seconds between lightning and thunder. "Noah," Miles murmured sleepily, "can you stay until the storm's over?" "Of course I can, champ." "Promise," Mason added, already half asleep. "I promise." When the boys finally fell asleep, Noah carefully tucked them into Miles' bed. They always ended up sleeping together on difficult nights. "You have a way with them," Naomi commented softly as he left the room. "I learned from you," he replied, following her into the kitchen. "Through the stories you tell, the photos you share." Naomi began to prepare tea, her movements automatic in the familiar kitchen. "You know, for a long time I wondered what it would be like to have help on difficult nights. The fevers, the storms, the nightmares. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner," Noah said, his voice laden with regret. "It's not about the past now," she replied, handing him a cup of tea. "It's about how you're here now, making a difference." They sat at the kitchen table, the comfortable silence interrupted only by the distant sound of the rain. "Naomi," Noah began hesitantly, "I know we're still building this new dynamic, but I want you to know that I'm committed to it, to them, to being the father they deserve." She studied his face for a moment before replying, "I know. I see it every day, in the way you've reorganized your life, how you respect our limits, how you strive to understand them." A soft noise upstairs interrupted the conversation. They both went upstairs quickly, finding Miles awake, looking anxiously out of the window. "Are you still there?" he asked when Noah entered the room. "It's going away," Noah assured him, sitting back down on the edge of the bed. "Do you want to tell me some more?" Miles nodded, snuggling against him as Mason continued to sleep peacefully. Naomi watched from the doorway as Noah gently counted down the seconds with his son, his voice calm and comforting in the darkness. It was a scene she had never imagined possible a few months ago. Noah being exactly the father his children needed. The storm eventually passed, leaving only the soft sound of rain. Miles fell asleep again, and Noah carefully tucked him in next to his brother. "I think I should go," he whispered to Naomi in the hallway. "It's late and still raining," she replied. "The sofa in the living room is comfortable." It was more than an offer of practicality. It was a sign of trust, of acceptance in their familiar space. "Thanks," Noah said. And they both knew it wasn't just the sofa. That night, lying on the sofa in the house that should have been his home from the start, Noah reflected on how storms sometimes bring more than destruction. Sometimes they clear the air, reveal truths, and strengthen bonds that seemed impossible to rebuild. Dr. Bennett's office looked different that December afternoon. It was the first joint session with Naomi and Noah, without the boys, an important milestone in their co-parenting process. "In the last 6 months," the therapist began, "we've seen remarkable progress in the twins' adaptation to Noah's presence. How do you evaluate this evolution?" Naomi was the first to answer, her hands intertwined in her lap. "It's surprising how naturally they've accepted him. Sometimes it seems that he's always been there. But," Dr. Bennett encouraged, noticing the hesitation in her voice, "but there are still moments." Naomi took a deep breath. "Moments when the fear comes back, fear that this is all temporary." Noah felt the weight of those words. "I understand that fear," he said softly. "I know I caused it with my past actions." "How do you deal with this fear, Noah?" asked the therapist. "Every day is a new promise for me," he replied, looking directly at Naomi. "Every moment with them is a chance to prove that I've changed, that I'm committed." Dr. Bennett made some notes before continuing. "The boys have expressed some interesting questions in the individual sessions. Mason, especially, has been asking about the past." "What kind of questions?" Naomi asked, tensing slightly. "He wants to understand why Noah wasn't there from the start. It's natural that, as the bond strengthens, these doubts arise." Noah leaned forward in his chair. "How should we approach this?" "With honesty appropriate to their age," the therapist replied. "They're young, but incredibly perceptive. They need a narrative that they can understand, without feeling responsible for the previous absence." "I'm afraid," Naomi admitted, her voice trembling slightly, "afraid that knowing the truth will hurt them." "The truth has already hurt them," Noah said gently. "My absence has already hurt them. Now we need to help them understand and heal." Dr. Bennett nodded approvingly. "Exactly. And speaking of healing, there's another matter we need to discuss. Christmas is coming." The silence that followed was fraught with meaning. It would be Noah's first Christmas with the boys. "Traditionally," Naomi began hesitantly, "we spend Christmas Eve at my mother's house, and Christmas morning at home, just the 3 of us." "I don't want to interrupt your traditions," Noah hastened to say. "But the boys asked if you'd come," she added. "They want you to be a part of it." Dr. Bennett watched the interaction with interest. "How do you feel about creating new traditions together?" Naomi hesitated, unexpected tears in her eyes. "For 3 years, I built our traditions alone. Every ornament on the tree, every Christmas story, it was all to make up for what was missing." Noah felt his own heart squeeze. "Naomi, But," she continued, wiping her eyes, "seeing how they light up when you're around, how they trust you. Maybe it's time to build something new, something that includes all our broken and mended parts." "How do you imagine this new arrangement?" asked the therapist. "Maybe," Noah suggested cautiously, "I could take part in Christmas morning, after you've had your traditional family time." Naomi considered for a moment. "The boys always wake up at 6. Could you come at 8, for breakfast and the opening of presents?" "That would be perfect," Noah smiled softly. "Is there anything else you'd like to discuss?" Dr. Bennett asked. "Yes," Naomi said, surprising them both. "Noah, the boys have a choir recital at school next week. They'd like you to sit with us, with the family." The word family hung in the air, loaded with meaning. "Are you sure?" Noah asked, his voice breaking. "I am," Naomi replied firmly. "It's time we stopped pretending that we're just acquaintances who share children. We're a family, different, imperfect, but a family." Dr. Bennett smiled. "That's significant progress. How do you feel about that, Noah?" "Grateful," he replied simply, unshed tears in his eyes, infinitely grateful. When the session was over, they walked together to the parking lot. The snow was beginning to fall softly, the first harbinger of the coming winter. "Naomi," Noah called out before she got into her car. "Thank you for everything." She stopped, the snowflakes dancing around her. Do you know what Miles told me last night? He said that his heart was getting bigger because now there was room for more love in it. Noah felt the tears he'd been holding back during the session finally fall. Our children, Naomi continued softly, they teach us about forgiveness and unconditional love every day. Maybe it's time we learned from them. As she left, Noah stood in the snow for a moment, thinking about how sometimes the deepest scars can become the strongest bridges. In 2 weeks, he would attend his first Christmas as a father. It was a gift he never imagined he deserved, but one he was determined to honor with every fiber of his being. The snow continued to fall, covering Boston with a white blanket of new possibilities and promises of new beginnings. The end. If you could go back in time and fix a mistake that completely changed the course of your life and that of other people, would you? Or do you believe that some scars need to exist in order to transform us into better versions of ourselves? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.